You figured out you married crazy, but what was the last straw that made you say fuck it? She contacted an ex-girlfriend who we found out had breast cancer. They met for lunch and started hanging out without me knowing it. Then she told me that she and the ex-girlfriend had worked something out where I would get back with the ex so she could be happy, and then after she passed away, we would get back together again. There was a bunch of weird stuff before that, but this one took the cake. Money would disappear from time to time, like as soon as I had saved enough for something important. I was very young and couldn't really connect that he would do this to us, when it seemed we were both working so hard toward big goals. The last straw was when another $2,000 stash disappeared and I wouldn't let it go. I demanded he tell me where it went, and he said, "If I don't want you to know something, you will never know." After hiding in the karaoke bar bathroom for 30 minutes, she came to me in tears, because the guy she had been trying to cheat on me with turned her down. She was expecting sympathy. So I told her what she did was unforgivable, said goodbye to my friends and called us an Uber home. She cried the entire way while I shared apologetic looks with the driver. Once home, I told her to sleep on the couch and that we would talk in the morning. She was still upset and told me she was going to take an Ambien to sleep. I told her to do whatever she wanted and closed the door to the bedroom. I was laying there for about 30 minutes processing how awful this was, and how I had to get out of this marriage, when I sat bolt upright. She had been drinking a lot that night, and then she took a sedative. I ran out to the living room and tried to shake her awake, no response. She was still breathing, but I couldn't wake her, so I called 911. About 5 or 6 minutes later there were 5 firefighters and 2 police in my living room, taking her vitals and loading her onto a stretcher for a trip to the ER. A firefighter looks me in the eyes and says he sees people die this way all the time. The police question me, and examine me to see if there are signs of a struggle, checking my fingernails, looking for scratches on my forearms, neck, face, etc. It sucked, but the cop was actually a really nice guy and was just doing his job. Turns out the Ambien prescription was super old and from her ex-boyfriend. Awesome stuff to learn at 3 a.m. They take her to the ER for treatment. I follow the ambulance, since even though I hate what she did to me, I don't want her to die. At this point I'm still processing the night, but also the past 4 years of marriage, and how the abuse from her built up to this point. The best I can describe it as is surfacing from deep underwater. I find out she is stable and recovering. It's 5 a.m., so I go home and play with my cats and watch the sunrise. This is a question for me. My ex-husband was a bad man and definitely crazy. I could say so much here, but the final straw is the question asked. So, from shortly after we met, he told me he had a deceased son, and that not many people knew as he didn't like to share it. He said the child passed away at age 4 and that he had had him on holidays as he wasn't really with the mother anymore, but they'd had many memories. He told me everything about this kid, his favorite toys, his hobbies, his birthday and death day, his full name including 2 middle names. He had a tattoo for his son. Pictures. Everything you'd expect really, without demanding someone to show you cold hard proof. We even drove 9HS to visit his grave, but never actually went to the grave, as my ex broke down crying. In fact, when our bio child together was born, we attempted to list him as her sibling on the birth certificate, but we weren't allowed as I wasn't his mother and there was no half-siblings allowed to be listed. But, there were loose threads. Things that didn't make sense. It was hard to demand proof and people don't tend to lie about deceased children and it's a hell of an accusation, but eventually I did. Too much to explain, but this son never existed. And I spoke to the supposed mother and she said, "Why does he keep doing this? We don't have a son dead or alive." He did eventually admit it, after trying to make a fake profile for his ex who he claimed was the mother and tried to message me on there as her to convince me, didn't work. That was the last straw, making my escape with my daughter a week later, needed some planning. Never seen him again, thank God. Got full custody. She smothered a quail to death on our back porch while I was at work and told me about it in excruciating detail when I got home. She was in vet school and described how she put her stethoscope on the bird's chest and listened to its heartbeat stop as she held its beak closed and covered the air holes. We weren't married, luckily, but damn, she was nuts. We never had a real conversation after that. I just moved out as soon as I could. She's a veterinarian now and that really disturbs me. My aunt married crazy. dude turned into a conspiracy theorist and prepper, but the final straw was him getting arsenic tablets to give the kids in case society falls and we're surrounded. When he went on a business trip and asked his 17-year-old brother to stay with me because I had a sick infant. I told his brother that my husband admitted he cheated on me. He hadn't actually told me, but I had a hunch. Then his brother said, "Oh good. I'm so good he told you because I knew you guys could make it through this." I gotta say it was a little creepy when he showed up to a high school party drunk. Especially when I saw he was getting a blowjob from someone I was in school with. I mean, she was 16 and he's 28. That's when I made a plan to get the fuck out of that marriage. I didn't tell him I knew until we separated, and he asked if we could pretend to be married and live together until our kid graduated high school. Thankfully, I never got married, but the time we had a polar vortex and I closed my business for the week, invited my then partner to where my friends and I were hanging out, he left me on red, so I went home and went to sleep. After a full day of wildly abusive messages about how he was sure I cheated on him, we literally lived less than a block from each other, he broke into my house with a gun at 5 a.m. and demanded to go through my phone. Not me, but my uncle. He divorced his wife after she smashed his windshield with a shoe heel after an argument. Or maybe after someone said something to her during a family dinner, she jumped over the table and ran away. They divorced when my cousin was little, 5 or so years old. He passed away at 21 years old, and after years of no contact my uncle had to resume communication with his ex to figure out burial and stuff. And yes, she was just as crazy. Where we live, when a person is buried, a wooden cross is installed first, and then, after the ground settles, a gravestone can be erected. My uncle bought a good cross and installed it, but she removed it and installed a different one as a matter of principle. Later on she had a gravestone installed, and apart from her son's last name, which was my uncle's last name, she added her own maiden name in parentheses to show that her son belonged to her as well. You would imagine she visited the grave often, but she actually soon got a boyfriend and moved away. When I was accused of having invisible people hiding in the walls and somehow giving them oral sex in front of him. We have been together since we were kids, and I had a medical misdiagnosis that made me disabled and dependent on him. I guess he couldn't handle it and he started doing a lot of coke and he developed schizophrenia. I try to joke now, but it's terrifying not being able to get away from someone like that, and I'm partially paralyzed so I couldn't fight back. Last straw was actually when I was in the shower and he came in with a knife trying to stab this person I was obviously cheating on him with. This was actually about a month ago. I was at my BIL soccer game with my sister, who my husband hadn't let me see in over a year. He knew the address of where I was at and who I was with. But he lost his mind when I wasn't home when he got off work, sending threatening texts and calls. I asked my sister in BIL to follow me home. Turns out he was sitting in his car with the headlights off nearby. He pulled out soon after we did and followed us for miles, trying to slam into my car and push it off the road. He came home from work, threw his wedding ring at me, packed a bag and said he was leaving with his online hussy, my description, not his. Walked out, went and got her, with her kids screaming and crying, and they left. The aftermath was hell to clean up as we'd been renting a big house and I had to get rid of everything and move. Afterwards, all my female friends were messaging me asking why he was sending them messages saying he'd had a dream about them. He was still with her. I'm sure he's still doing it to this day. That was over 20 years ago and he looks horrible now. They're still together. My stepmom called and told me that his less than half his age girlfriend's mom had messaged her on Facebook. The mom had said that at Thanksgiving dinner, my husband had told everyone that he was waiting for my dad to die of cancer before divorcing me so that he would be entitled to half of any inheritance. I should say that he stood me and his kids up for Thanksgiving that year at the last minute. He was going to bring groceries and I had no car, so I ended up eating corn dogs in front of the TV with my 3 and 6-year-old. That was when I knew it was definitely over. I knew it was definitely over now when the girlfriend's roommates kicked her out the next week and he told me she was moving in and we were going to be a throuple now. It took 2 or 3 days for me to internalize that he was serious, and then I told him we were breaking up and he should find somewhere else to stay. I was the sole breadwinner, we had small children. He told me he wouldn't be moving, and that if I left he was not going to contribute to any type of childcare or help of any kind. I again had no car or license, but me and the kids moved out and stayed in crappy hotel rooms for 5 weeks over Christmas until I was able to find an apartment. He flipped out because I told him I was coming over, and then a couple hours had passed and I didn't confirm that I was coming over and just showed up to his house. We live 10 minutes away from each other and we have basically spent every night together for 3 years. But this was super upsetting and super disrespectful and super insulting because I didn't give him a second heads up that I was definitely coming. He acted really weird, yelled at me, then got really upset, almost in tears about it, and then sulked for a long time. After 4 hours of sulking, I thought maybe we could move on. I also offered to leave, but of course it was deeper than that. This guy literally abandoned me in a foreign country on a vacation before, because I forgot to take my shoes off and stepped on the bath mat in an Airbnb. He was so upset about that, he bought a plane ticket and left the country 3 days before the end of our trip. Now he was acting like I was causing him pain and anguish by just coming over when he no longer expected it. It was like 7:30 p.m. I brought everything to make dinner. I just couldn't believe what a bit *** he was. I woke up really early the next morning, packed my things and left. 3 years of straight-up abuse, and this was the last straw. At first, when I said we should just break up, he was like, yeah, I've come to terms with the fact that we're just not compatible. When he realized that I wasn't going to argue or fight for him, and that I wasn't going to respond, he came to my house and cried and begged me and pleaded on the floor, saying that he wasn't even a man before he met me. WTF? He was 35 years old and he still wasn't a man then. By far the worst person I've ever dated in my life. When she just would stop spending. It drove me nuts. The last bit was after I had taken family finances back over, gotten everything under control, rebuilt credit, and finally had things straightened out. No more utilities getting shut off, no more evictions, hell, we were homeowners. I added her onto my longest held credit card with the explicit instructions that this was for building credit and emergencies, don't spend anything on it. 3 days later I get notified that the card is over the halfway point. I tell her again to only use it in emergencies. A week later it maxed out. I started making plans then, but she beat me to it. I got a text, I finally figured out what to get you for our anniversary, I hope it makes you happy. Surprise divorce papers served the next day. It took a year to finalize, during which time I moved 1,200 miles away, but still paid her house and car payments. She was awarded both, but specifically told she was responsible for the payments, and had to pay me for my half of the equity in the house, and I had to make my payment to the state. 6 months later, the house is in foreclosure, the truck has been repoed, my credit is destroyed again, and she's begging me to fix it all. Unfortunately, I missed the part where my support offer was backdated to the filing date, so was immediately subjected to $600 per week of withholding, and can barely afford my own bills. She won't sign off on that, even for my equity in the house, so she's about to be homeless. Our daughter already moved to be with me at Christmas, and I'll likely end up with the boys too. Everything I worked so hard for is gone now. I was expected to go back to bed because she on the couch wanted to sleep in. That exploded into another argument because I didn't follow her whims again. I had already said, one more senseless fight and I'm gone. This is after the 2 instances of physical abuse with witnesses. After 3 weeks of not taking her meds the doctor prescribed, they would balance her out and she wouldn't end up in the behavioral ward again. After a month of fighting every time we saw each other, except when she wanted me to buy her food. After 18 months of walking on eggshells around her to not give her a reason to start fighting. After years of lies and cheap manipulation. I gave her far too many chances to change. I am not sorry to be done with her. Not me, but a close friend. His wife was 8 years older than him but acted like a senior citizen, he was like 30. She wouldn't go put with him or us anywhere because she didn't want to miss Jeopardy. Then she was always commenting that he would be happier with someone younger. He was actually quite happy, but it seemed she was always trying to push him away. One time when she did come with us to the bar, she was trying to hook him up with my wife's sister who had recently gone through a breakup, saying she would be perfect for him. Eventually they finally split up, but then she hired a private investigator to follow him for over a year to report on what he was doing and who he was seeing. She emailed me with her report and to ask me if there was any hope of them getting back together now that he has sowed his oats. I went to therapy to sort out my shit. I suggested she also go to therapy to sort out hers. I was hoping that we might also go to couples counseling, but after her first session she came out scoffing. She couldn't handle one session of therapy without casting it off. I knew that day when we walked out of our individual therapies together, I was going to divorce her. Then she got pregnant. It took 2 years from that moment to finally pull the plug. Of course I had responsibility for getting her pregnant. I was young and foolish. I didn't know how marriage worked, let alone using 2 forms of birth control. My kids are out of high school now. It's old news. And if you asked my ex, I was a horrible, emotionally abusive piece of shit. So I'm not trying to get sympathy from strangers. I was foolish, I got humbled, now I've grown. Just to prove the point of my own youthful idiocy, the reason it took 2 years was because I got her pregnant again after our first was born. And by that time, we were both utterly miserable in the marriage. I felt like I was the only one who could see it. I wasn't innocent though. I was an asshole. For every complaint I make about my ex, she could volley an equally damning complaint about me. When she spent $20,000 on our credit card without telling me while having an affair with her boss, then sold all of our shit, after I took the dog to go stay at my mom's, then moved in with a guy in New Jersey, flash forward to her mother calling me 3 months later, after no contact, telling me she ended up in Eastern Europe on a manic break and I needed to go do something. That was the final straw after the other final straws. She was officially diagnosed bipolar 1 a few months later after years of begging her to get evaluated. Although it probably should have been when she gave my cat away when I was out of town for work for 2 days. To be fair, it was a Hemingway cat that only liked me and would bite the shit out of anyone else. I'd trained it to shit on the toilet with probably a 70% success rate. But with more time we could have gotten it up to like 98%, I'm pretty confident. Wasn't married, but recently broke up with her after she ruined a 10-year friendship I had with a girl because she suspected us of cheating on her. Note that we were long distance and I was over 2,000 kilometers away from my friend, who also lived in the same town as my then girlfriend. I'd shown her my entire chat logs and every communication I've ever had with my friend to prove there was nothing between us, but she would still tell me I was lying and hiding everything. I'd called my friend 3 times in the 16-month relationship with my partner and apparently that was too much. I wasn't allowed to see my friend when I'd flown down, even with my partner by my side, because she kicked up a stink when we were outside my friend's house and made me choose between us 2. She absolutely hated my friend for no reason besides her looks, and would constantly make up scenarios about the 2 of us and refused to listen when I tell her that literally none of what she was saying would happen. As a result, I'd never talk about my friend to her, yet she would constantly bring her up in arguments all the time. It came to an end when my partner mentioned her in an argument, got so angry and threatened to break the windows of my friend's house, drove to her house and sent me a photo from outside her house. She refused to leave until I had sent a message to my friend that she wrote, and when I sent it, my friend blocked me on everything and a 10-year friendship down the drain. Then after I broke up with her, she would constantly tell me that I chose my friend over her, and that I always did. No, it's just not normal to threaten your partner with anything of those sorts regardless of who it was. She is honestly crazy and would always find excuses when I tell her she needs therapy to heal from her traumas. I've had her blocked for about 2 weeks now and I'm always on edge because I hope she doesn't actually do something or fly to me to try to do something. But I wouldn't put it past her. Had something similar with one of my exes, not ex-wife, in the past. I have 2 very close female friends after my divorce, and they were like big sisters that I never had growing up as a single child. They looked out for me while I was depressed after the divorce, made me accountable for my alcoholic tendency at the time, and made sure I wasn't suicidal anymore. They are truly the closest I had to family. Even till this day I casually mentioned my female friends to her because I wanted an open and honest relationship. Ex-wife cheated on me. Also, it would be nice to see the girl I was dating to be friends with my closest friends at the time. Well, apparently that was a trigger for my ex since her ex-husband cheated on her with his coworker and married said coworker. In her mind, men and women can't be friends without ending up sleeping with each other. She straight up hated my closest friend with a very deep insecurity even though she hadn't met my friend. I tried to help her work on her insecurity issues, help her to go see therapist, but she said in her head that I will one day fuck my platonic female friend. She got verbally abusive yet indecisive about our situationship. I wanted exclusivity at the time, she didn't. I ended the BS a few years before I met my current wife. That ex has taught me many valuable lessons in relationships and definitely helped me create healthy balance and boundaries in my current marriage. I always had a good stable job, but she could never hold a job for very long. When she was not working, we went into debt. When she worked, we could slowly climb out of debt. Finally, she said that, because of her mental illnesses, she couldn't work anymore. Translation: she never did want to work and now she has an excuse. That was it. After years of dragging it out, we hit the final straw. At least it was a mutual split up. Without me as her cash cow to depend on, she had no other choice but to actually work on her mental health. We are both better off now. Due to some childhood trauma, my ex equated sympathy with love. She would create situations and start drama to put herself in the sympathetic position. Every scenario was based on lies and manipulation. Everyone heard a different story depending on her victimization scenarios. After 6 years of being responsive to her demands, she called me at work one day with a fresh batch of BS and expected me to polish up my armor, mount my white stallion, and charge off to her rescue yet again to prove my love. Something in me simply broke and I was done. I realized she was a black hole of neediness. There was never going to be enough sympathy. Therapy wasn't helping, medication wasn't helping, it was simply who she is. The veil had fallen and there was nothing she or anyone else could do to put things together again. She's been married 3 times since our divorce, twice to the same dude. One husband had her committed to a psych hospital for 3 months. She's lost both children she birthed. She can't hold a job because her needy manipulations extend to all areas of her life. My father put it best when he said she's piteous. When arguments are more often than conversations. That's a dead giveaway. Mine was an issue because I second-guessed myself and my actions. Trust me, I'm not Prince Charming or any level of perfection. There's plenty of negatives I could have steered better. However, the last straw was an argument that she aggressively pointed out. I don't do the dishes enough, I don't help with housework, chores, I lie all the time, I probably cheated/did I cheat, my family are just users, I don't earn enough money, the job I do is pathetic and get a real job, I only want to hang out with friends, I don't pick the right show/movie when we sit down to eat, I'm horrible in bed and want sex way too much that it's not healthy. Finally, we should see a therapist or marriage counseling. So I addressed the noted complaint. I do the dishes 3 to 5 days a week, just not directly after dinner as she demands. I leave for work shortly after, every time I attempt to sweep the floors or do the bathrooms. She literally freaks out that I'm doing it wrong, using the wrong broom, etc., or simply she was going to do that task later today. Following this up with, let's make a chore list. That was shut down and I should just know and do it. I do like, and quite often. I said this is true. It's easier to lie and say I didn't eat out for lunch while at work. Via McDonald's drive-thru. Then listen to the screamfest for doing such a thing without your royal consent. Cheating, I almost wish I did. Sadly, I'm not good with people or relationships, let alone a one-night stand situation. Despite her being on my ass daily, she thinks somehow I made time for this. Nope, I've been faithful and really regret it for as many years this has gone downhill. My family are just users, mostly true and won't deny. The last time a family member came to our place was near a decade ago. Still won't let go of negative things that happened when we were all 18-22. She is correct, but we already took a big step back from family. The job, I made good money but hours are horrible. I'm the only earner in the house and usually work 2 jobs to handle the hurdles life throws at you. She is really making the remark that I spent money we didn't have to get a degree, via taking out a loan. It's $50 per month and my field I'm currently not working in. So just salt in the wound is my impression. Context, I worked for a Fortune 500 company, borderline paralegal work. Friends, I've never been good with people or friends. Once every 3 to 4 months a friend/coworker would want to see a superhero movie. His wife doesn't care for them, mine doesn't want anything to do with me. So it worked out, we would trade who pays tickets and who pays for popcorn/soda. This somehow equals me spending too much time with friends. Again, doesn't make sense to me. Not picking the right show. The history is, we eat dinner with the TV on. typically I go to work after. So I don't try to get sucked into anything, but she wants me to choose. I've argued countless times, you want me to pick something only you are interested in, that you haven't seen before, every single night. Now I tried and nothing I picked was right, it was a belittling bitch fest. I stopped picking and she complained even more. Now I just eat in the other room or eat OTW to work via granola bar etc. Yes, I'm the asshole here. Horrible in bed and wants sex way too much. This one honestly affected me pretty bad. Never heard of issues before, but we also haven't been intimate in a long time. She would say things like, the guy should start the interaction. Yeah, that didn't work at all. So instead I just asked instead of touching and upsetting. FFS married or not, no means no. She would say no every time, so I stopped asking and trying altogether. Finally, therapy or marriage counseling. I tried to sort a time/day for us to go. She was pretty much just against anything said. So I put it blunt, this was your idea and I'm finding the right place in person. I just need time and day, what's the big deal? She ends the conversation saying that it isn't marriage counseling that's needed. It's therapy but just for me. So yeah, the problem is me. I was young and shallow. Looks trumped personality. He was beautiful but possessive, jealous and obsessive. He would call at all hours. He would show up at 3 a.m. just to see if anyone else was there, and other weird behavior. The kicker was when I had the flu. I was so sick. I just wanted to sleep. He called me 6 times in 30 minutes. I put the phone on silent and went to sleep. I woke up to the police banging on the door. The insecure motherfucker had the cops do a welfare check. After explaining the situation to them, the cops were irritated. They told me, in front of him, it would be a good idea to get a restraining order. I dumped him on the spot. I got a restraining order. He stalked me at work. Called and texted me begging to take him back. He broke into my house once, showed up at my mom's job, and more. I had to move and get a new phone number. He eventually killed himself because his new GF left him. I was so relieved. Mean, I know, but I was finally free of this weirdo. He taught me a life lesson about personality trumping looks. Never again have I dismissed the guys who weren't traditionally attractive. After years of arguing about feeling like everything, but especially friends, were prioritized over me, I moved out the 5th time she told me to pack my shit in GTFO, that she wanted a divorce. We were, quietly, no one knew, trying to work things out. We'd set a date by which we were going to tell our friends that things were going better so we could start the process of moving back in together and all that jazz. Things seemed to be going very, very well. We were being vulnerable with each other in ways we hadn't for a long time, we were being receptive of one another's issues, she took responsibility for a lot of the fucked yo shit she did, I only out she there, because I'd always taken responsibility. She was constantly gushing about how much she loved me, she was so happy we were working things out, she couldn't wait for me to move back in, etc. Our initial breakup caused a split in our friend group, and while the people on my side didn't hate her, but rather thought she needed mental help, we all believed her shitty behaviors were due to anxiety that she refused to treat. The people on her side absolutely hated me and anyone who continued to associate with me. A week before we were due to tell our friends, she asked if we could delay it because she was scared to tell her friends. That was it. Found out later that one of the friends she was scared to tell was a coworker she'd gotten really close with, and I'd had suspicions they were seeing each other in those last couple weeks. I learned recently that I was right. The other friends were just the people she did massive amounts of cocaine with all weekend, every weekend. I've experienced serious sexual assault a few times in life, including when I was 16 losing my virginity to an older man who made me his girlfriend and essentially tortured me for 6 months. Gross simplification of a complicated situation for brevity, obviously. Many years later I'm married and my ex-HB gradually becomes radicalized as vociferously anti-woke around the time of the Me Too movement. All streams of wokery wound him up, but women talking about sex abuse at the hands of men particularly drew his ire, despite being married to a woman who had previously been assaulted various times. He thought women were making up claims in order to demonize men. He also came to have a problem with women being promoted in the workplace and having financial independence, again, despite the fact that I out-earned him and had to prop us up financially because of his compulsive spending habits and debt. I married a classic millennial London hipster who slowly over time became a far-right armchair firebrand who was unhappy not to have a trad wife, but he didn't seem to understand that he wasn't fulfilling the role of a traditional breadwinning husband, so how on earth could I suddenly become a trad wife, presuming that I'd even want to be? He behaved like a teenage boy, but apparently I was the one emasculating him. I'm oversimplifying this story obviously, but over time I came to realize that I couldn't sleep with this man and certainly couldn't have his babies. And then the lack of sex sent us into a death spiral. The final straw moment for me came when we were watching a film which depicted sexual assault, and I sat there in timid silence, experiencing palpitations and panic, as I often do when witnessing such things, knowing that I had to hide my distress from him or set off a rant. He launched into a tirade anyway about how it was a terrible film, full of anti-male propaganda etc., and he got upset when I wouldn't agree with him. I went to take a bath afterwards, in order to have an excuse to be in a different room from him for a while, but he insisted on following me into the bathroom, pulled down the toilet lid and sat there psychologically chipping away at me, trying to wear me down until I would agree that, yes, it was a shit film, and, yes, we're all making it up, and, yes, my very state of being is offensive to him. I sat there in the water hugging my knees and realizing that either one day I would end up dead in the sodding bathtub or that one day I would have to divorce him. So I did. Obviously that set off a rant about how divorce laws are too liberal and women shouldn't be allowed to just up sticks and leave their husbands. But, fuck it, I did it anyway. I still maintain he's not at heart a bad man, just a deluded and radicalized man, and there are plenty others like him out there. He had untreated ADHD. When he got upset he would smack himself in the face. I never saw that before we got married. I remember trying to talk to him during one of his episodes and he turned to me with a creepy smile and said, "You haven't seen anything yet." That, and the fact he was addicted to gambling and cleaned out our, at least it was small, emergency fund, promised he'd stop, repeat. I realized this 8 years ago. Any money we make he spends immediately. 8 years ago we did very well in cryptocurrency and he became a spending maniac. He spent $1 million in the first 6 months, he talked and acted like it would never end. And when it became clear it was all crashing down he was in deep denial. He got into NFTs and I knew he was out of control. Now we have some crypto left but it's hardly worth anything anymore, we have no retirement savings and he watches the trading price all day long. It just goes down. It'll never go to the moon again and he can't see that. He doesn't work and my $20 per hour full-time job isn't sustaining us. Being rich for a minute was not fun for me, just made me realize my spouse is not mentally stable. I was at work and my company had hired a new analyst. I was also an analyst at the time, so my senior director wanted me to mentor her on all things about our systems. I was excited, so I told my ex all about it. She was insanely jealous of other women and I should have understood that anytime I mentioned another woman, excluding my mom, she would fly in a fit of rage about it. What was ironic about that was that every single boyfriend she had ever been with she wound up cheating on them. I think she was afraid I would do the same to her. Anyways, she flies into a fit of rage, tries calling me while at work. I denied the calls but asked her why she's blowing up my phone via text. Then out comes this stream of anger and resentment about how I'm going to bang this new girl and cheat on her. We literally just met 30 minutes ago and I've been asked to mentor her for work. In what way does that mean I'll be cheating on you with her? I don't know, it just is. I realized then and there that if she's this insecure about me, and is willing to interrupt my workday on petty shit like this, how will it be if we ever married or had kids? I broke up with her via text. I couldn't handle dealing with the antics anymore, the verbal and physical abuse, the constant jealousy and rage. Retrospective pathological jealousy after childbirth. It got harder and harder, her first trying to isolate me from friends and family, and not bring any of hers into our life more than once. Not letting me sleep while I had to work the next day, because of ubiquitous questions regarding my past relationships. I did the home office as much as possible, I bought childcare, so she can recover and do her things, I was sole breadwinner. Let me do all the chores in the evening, including cooking and taking care of our child in the evening, but won't accept if we didn't do trips on the weekends so I could catch up with cleaning. beat our child for screaming and behaving very cold if the child didn't show love towards her. When I was at work, she came to my workplace and made a scene because I didn't answer the messages immediately. Last straw was when she told me I was cheating because I said I would go to the office the next day because she did not let me work in the morning. She didn't want to watch our child because I was using the phone on the toilet. She provoked me by destroying more of my things, as she already had before, and I got angry and we had a violent fight. She destroyed more things, and I looked at myself and the child in our sleeping room, and the next morning, when she was asleep, I abducted the child to a different country, because where we live, mothers by default get care for the child if there is domestic violence. She pulled a knife on me. Twice. She always had an irrational fear that some Mexican was gonna come and rape her while I left for work. She would sit up exorcist style in bed and just say, "Wasn't I supposed to take a pill? I forgot my pills. What was that pill I needed to take?" She had to be up at 5:30 to get to work by 7 a.m. I tended to be up at 7 and I silently laid in bed, TV on, earpiece in, watching TV in the darkened room, and her night terrors started to scare me. One day, she showed she slept with a steak knife. Broad daylight, 2 separate times she went for the knife, on me. I used to travel 3 to 4 hours one way for work and would make it a 14 to 16 hour day to shorten how many days I needed to work. It became untenable because she was convinced I wasn't working but banging every associate at the places I visited for work. When I left, it became, "What happened?" Well, only one question for you: how was the dinner and the sex we were apparently having, because I don't remember a thing. The number of girls I had on Facebook equaled the number of chicks I was banging. Fun fact, literally most were lesbians, which is why I dared friend them, because I knew the accusations were coming, and at least if they were lesbians, I had some cover. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up and leave a comment down below. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel by clicking here, and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I post a new video. Check out these videos for more content you might enjoy. See you in the next video.
I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn ain't that great. I don't wanna go to work, cause my boss is a jerk, and I'm not even that paid. I need a change in my life, cause I don't feel alive, and there's nothing that makes